Welcome, my OK investors. It's your boy Kay, and today I've got something special to show you before we get into the vid. A virtual office tour. The life of being a virtual finance YouTuber is filled with many luxuries. Just look at this office. How did I afford this, I hear some of you say? Through you guys, the audience, and your charitable donations through Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you so much, Simi, Daniel, Rishabelt, and Vanderpanda for keeping this channel alive. But there is one other income stream, known as investing. You too can eventually build up enough wealth to enjoy a similar lifestyle, but it has to start somewhere. So start today. There's a referral link to sign up to free trade in the description below, and it's super easy to do. All you have to do is complete a form and fund your account with at least £2, and if you manage to do that before June the 30th, you're guaranteed to earn a free share worth between £10 and £200, and you also help the channel as well. And with that, this video's already given you at least £10 worth of value. Now let's get into the vid. So, as the title suggests, I'm going to be reacting to a Jubilee video, WallStreetBets versus actual Wall Street traders. So let's just jump straight into it.
I can't repeat, Ben, I love what you represent. I love it. But the fact of the matter is, like, your altruism doesn't actually hit the masses.
Middle ground.
Large institutional investors have lost tens of millions of dollars.
The assumption that the Reddit crowd were idiots is incorrect.
Why do you think this is important, what's happening?
There's an enormous sort of crowdsourced effort to identify forms of corruption.
In this case, it's not really sticking it to the man, it's ill-informed discussions that are being had, creating risk.
This is not going to end well when it ends, and it will end very badly for the public.
They shouldn't be just willy-nilly distributing that to the four corners of the wind because somebody at their barbershop told them that they were going to make $1 million off of GameStop.
I think there's an assumption there that we aren't as astute just because we don't have whatever quote-unquote certification you want to give someone.
I'm always curious how people buy into systems broadly, especially systems like WallStreetBets, which is so based in things like racism and ableism.
But there's also some people that are doing very interesting deep dive financial evaluations. So to kind of put everyone in one basket, I feel like is a little unfair.
The surrounding message is so much more important than the money that I could be putting in my pocket right now. So I'm still holding diamond hands.
God damn.
What's up? I'm Sade. I started my career at Goldman Sachs before moving to an alts firm in LA.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Danny. I worked in finance. I'm also been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years.
My name is Mike. I am the CSO of a CPG startup.
Hey guys, my name is Ramneek. I'm a registered investment advisor and real estate broker.
Damn.
Hey guys, my name is Zach. I'm in the medical device sales space, and I also host a podcast called DIY Wealth.
My name's Ben. I'm the proud owner of several shares of GameStop, and I'm hodling until the squeezes squoze.
Okay. So I just want to start off by saying
I have invested in meme stock. Come forward if you agree.
I think the crowd that they've chosen is pretty interesting. Obviously, the actual Wall Street crowd seems like a very intelligent crowd. A bit confusing what she said about Wall Street bets being infused in racism, but we'll get to that soon. And yeah, the Wall Street bets crowd also, it seems pretty interesting. Hopefully they have a really good discussion.
It might be a little obvious why we invested in the meme stock, but I definitely want to hear why you did.
Yeah, I think if you think about meme in a different way, right? So like I've invested in stocks that were like memes on my desk. Yeah, like I know this isn't going anywhere, like this is kind of a joke. I own some like random B2C companies that like I would consider like, this is like a joke, a meme stock. Nothing quite to this level.
Things do trade on social sentiment now. If you got a couple bucks that you're willing to go broke on and watch it drive all the way down to zero, why not? You know, throw the dice on a couple of these where, you know, Elon Musk says something and they just launch.
I was in so many different clubhouse rooms and they were saying a similar thing. Oh, you can just throw a couple of dollars around. What difference does it make? If you're earning a lot of money and you have enough money to be able to fund your normal investments, and you can sprinkle around other money into like other kind of riskier plays, then sure. But for most normal people, it makes sense to just put all of your money into actual safe investments. You know, maybe sure, you won't get rich like that, but think about it. Even what he said, the little bit of spare change that you're going to invest into these meme stocks, that is just spare change to you. Even if the company, like, you know, 100x, but you're only putting like £100, like it's not a significant amount of money that you're gonna end up getting in the long run. To make an actual life-changing amount, you'll have to put like an amount that will hurt if it actually goes to zero. So you really have to be careful with that reasoning.
If you're treating a little bit of your portfolio like that now, even if you have the overall sentiment like market goes up, like stocks go burr, you have to still be able to have that mindset of like this theoretically, like worst case scenario could go to zero.
As far as meme stocks go, I'm drawn to nailing naked short sellers. That's my whole agenda here.
Good.
So
stick to the man.
It's just insane to me that for 4 decades the SEC has failed to get control of naked short selling as an illegal practice. So the only meme stocks I'm interested in buying are the short squeeze stocks, like GameStop and AMC.
So yours is like a spite investment.
I only have GameStop right now. It's a spite investment, absolutely.
Spite investment, that's funny.
One of the things that Ben said that kind of piqued my interest is the idea that you're doing this to stick it to the man. I love the sentiment. I love what you want to accomplish. But the thing that I kind of would push back with is the fact that the man is also winning.
I agree with you that there's going to be big guy firms that profit off of the GameStop phenomenon. But I suppose as long as at least one naked short seller gets their comeuppance, I feel accomplished.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, on the forum, like there were individuals that were pulling out and saying, because of this money that came into my world, I was able to pay for cancer treatment for my mother and things like that.
Yeah. But what about the people who are dying of like crazy losses? I feel like for every meme millionaire that WallStreetBets makes,
I'm not talking about even millionaires though,
But it's non-verified, non-backed up information. I mean, granted, Reddit has their thumbs up platform, and the anonymity that they provide their users does provide a level of access and freedom. But you're still receiving information that has not been verified, that doesn't necessarily have the analytics to back it up.
What they were talking about just before is essentially survivor bias. You know, if you're only focusing on the things that are shown, you know, for every person that has made a bunch of money on WallStreetBets, there's so many more that have lost a lot. And just because they don't post it doesn't mean they aren't there. So when everyone's kind of intrigued by all these gains that are being made, you also have to think about the other side, which may not be shown. And so, yeah, they have a pretty good point there.
So why does
analytics to back it up?
So why does WebMD exist then? You're not going to a doctor, you're not verifying anything right now, but you're going and doing your own due diligence on why you might be sick or how you're feeling.
Of course, but you're doing it on actual factual information, diseases, anatomy, physiology, and you're not doing it based upon an artificially inflated market that can be influenced by so many different realms.
Right, but one of the things is with the Reddit forum, to me, it's just theory crafting. It's just people theory crafting their own due diligence and putting their opinion behind it. If someone takes that seriously and executes against it, the risk is on them to do that.
In this space here, I agree with you. But do you think your average consumer that's out there that is investing based upon this movement is doing that same due diligence and has that same information?
No. Absolutely not. But at what point is it fair for me to be hindered on my acquiring of knowledge because someone else is choosing to be stupid, careless, and ignorant?
WallStreetBets is a movement.
As is sort of my agenda here, I think WallStreetBets is an incredible movement for raising awareness about a litany of unfair practices at the highest levels of the stock market. Number one, this whole GameStop thing started because of an illegal practice called naked short selling. I would say it's also a movement of crowdsourcing this enormous amount of investment knowledge and distributing it to an enormous pool of, there's 10 million subscribers now.
Do you think the 10 million actually get that knowledge?
No, not all of them, but
I don't think 1% of them do. That's kind of my whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Like, I can't repeat, Ben, I love what you represent. I love it. But the fact of the matter is, like, your altruism doesn't actually hit the masses. I believe WallStreetBets is a movement kind of like Nazism and communism and all these other bad movements.
Good.
I think it's a terrible movement.
Whoa. Nazism and communism. I have a lot
so
of
I guess
qualms with being
we
put
kinda
in
had
one
more-
bucket.
We had more of a positive connotation with the movement. You drug it all the way over to another
Sorry,
extreme.
let me be completely candid. I was being facetious. I
Okay,
don't think it's
all
that
right,
bad.
okay.
I don't think it's that bad. I'm not okay with the fact that the main losers aren't the guys you're trying to like screw out of this like terrible unethical practices.
Melvin Capital lost what?
But they immediately
$49
got bailed out by
billion.
Citadel.
And how many more giant conglomerate firms made bazillions of dollars while my good friends lost $1,000 here, $10,000 here? I don't want
very
people
good point.
like you guys,
So
like us, losing money.
So I guess on a scale though, you have this forum where people go around and pitch around decent ideas, whether great due diligence or absolutely none was done. And then you have, you remember a couple years ago, Wells Fargo creating the fake bank accounts?
That's a very good point.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Why is there so much laser focus on accountability on this, ragtag crew of forums and absolutely nothing changed on the Wells Fargo spectrum?
I'm there with you.
100%. During my training for investment banking, one of the slides that we actually got is how much fraud goes on in all these banks. And it's just like, since they essentially make so much revenue per year, like let's say now Barclays, sorry to mention you, please don't sue me, this is just, ramblings of a random anime man. They make like 100 billion in revenue one year, but they do this fraud, or some members do this fraud, and they get slapped with 100 million fine. 100 million, 100 billion. So they're essentially like, wow, that hurt so much. I'm just gonna do this again and again and again. So this guy does make a very good point. Loads of big banks are involved in these frauds all the time. It's crazy.
What's happening here is we're conflating two different things. Reddit is a forum and a platform that's aggregating sentiment. It is not one thing. Like a hedge fund with one goal is to make money off some niche is one thing. Reddit is just a collection of lots of different sentiments. Now, is that a movement in itself? No. Has it created byproducts that are exposing things that are maybe not in the investor's interest? I would say yes. And then another thing is Robinhood. Like, they're one of the genius of Robinhood has been they've gamified investing. And it's played into a narrative that isn't true, which people already have an inclination to interpret investing as gambling. And that's not what investing is about.
Right. So I agree with you. Right?
100%.
And you know what, I 100% agree with you there. But if you look at what's going on, the amount of risk that we have created just by these movements and allowing this type of influence to be made within our financial space, we don't even understand the repercussions of that.
But at the end of the day, the underlying thing is earnings per share, revenue, how much money you can make. And come hell or high water, that's the game of the capitalistic free market systems.
But if it leads to the downfall and bankruptcy of companies or institutional investors and companies falling out, going into bankruptcy, what type of instability does that create within not only our local economic environment, but on a global scale?
Are you actually concerned that could happen and that would be catastrophic for the average American?
No, not for the average American, but I think the average American who is taking their stimulus package and investing it into GameStop and realistically doesn't have.
Stephanie, I love you, cousin, but no, he also makes a very good point. Unfortunately, there are loads of people that aren't very educated on investing, which will be investing money that they should be allocating elsewhere into these meme stocks, so that could cause instability, and like something that Michael Burry is like, he's casting all these doomsday predictions, but one of the things he's saying is that loads of people that are just investing without understanding the companies that they that are underlying is causing a problem with price discovery. So it's like, how much is this company actually worth? If people are just dumping their money anywhere, either in index funds or just random meme stocks, it kind of takes away the point of actually valuing a company, and that could devalue the entire market. So there is some kind of point to this.
The funds to be genuinely investing, and they need to be building those capital assets. I think that's more what's at risk in this movement, and essentially what the problem is and the economic fallout.
Do you think, this is like a you question, like how much money was donated to the Fosse Gorilla Fund? Do you know, like, approximately?
Oh, I mean,
Not to like put you on the spot, because you're sure.
I believe it was in the millions, not
Right, like-
in the thousands.
Like, I would even argue, like, that donation alone, like, as someone who doesn't really like WallStreetBets as a space, I would even argue, like, that alone was a movement of itself. Not like a big, like, not like, oh, like, Occupy Wall Street, not Black Lives Matter, nothing like that. But, like, the fact is that people did turn around and were like, hey, like, we said this is something that we're doing for good, and, like, here's a direct impact. The racial undertones and, like, ableism, I think, is a little iffy. And, like, WallStreetBets pioneering gorillas as their mascot, I think, leads to a lot of icky moments.
God.
As someone who left Wall Street because someone black was called a gorilla, I think it's a lot.
Okay, that's terrible. And just in case, I know I'm going into dangerous waters here, but just to emphasize, or just to clarify, I am black, I am a Nigerian. I do not like when certain people look for the boogeyman. It's WallStreetBets. They are joking. They're calling each other apes. That is not inherently racism. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure. Maybe where you worked, this one person was really racist and got called that term, and obviously that's awful. But to then see every inclination of that thing as inherently racist, you know, it's WallStreetBets, man. They're calling each other apes. It's funny. Like, it's not that deep. Like, it really isn't. Anyway, let's continue.
A fun full circle moment. But, like, I think even that you can be like, yeah, like, there's underlying, we want to do good as a movement.
All investors should have access to the same type of tools and resources.
Oh, that's a good question. Same tools? I don't know.
I had the same information as those congresspeople who went and sold all their stocks right before Trump announced the pandemic to the public.
Politics, political structure, I mean, level of information based upon national security, kind of hard to exchange when you're working within a government agency. If they made those moves, we can talk about the ethics of that later. The same information that your trading houses had was the same information that was out there to the individual investor at that time.
Possibly.
I don't think, I disagree with that. I wholeheartedly believe in reality. We live in a plutocracy right now. Do you know what a plutocracy is?
I do.
So the government is controlled for and manipulated and used for by the wealthy. So I think there is a level of green.
Ignoring this guy's tiny little rant here, people will never have access to the same information. That is just common. People should have access to a lot of information, but for example now, if you work in a specific company that had suppliers in China, you would have known about a certain kind of thing that is spread around a lot sooner than everybody else did, you know? So it's a nice idea, but in reality it will never happen. And even the example that they gave, of course, when you work in the White House, you're going to have access to so much more information that if it was just common knowledge would cause a lot of problems. So certain people do have to get access to information before the general public, but of course there is obviously a conflict of interest when you have someone like, for example now, Bill Ackman, that will go on CNBC now and chant gloom and doom before he's like placed all these option bets that will actually benefit him once everyone's scared and the market starts to fall, which is a bit like, probably a bit unethical, but unfortunately these things happen.
And with having lots of money and power, there is certain information that's streamlined to people in higher positions than your average person. Therefore, all of the tools aren't being given to everyone equally on a playing field.
When it comes to what the institutional houses realistically have, when it comes to the information, the analytics, and the actual statistics that are out there and available, they are available to the general public.
Well, you say that, but then Enron would literally make calls to Wall Street and tell them to do blackouts in California, and they would manipulate the stock price, and then they would short it and buy it when it would dump it, when it would tank and go up. How can you sit there and go, that's an equal level of information being given to everyone?
Is that information? But is that information or ethics? It's essentially the same thing when you go to the doctor. Okay. Everything that he knows is accessible online to you. You can research it, you can WebMD it, you can actually buy the same medical books that he was there.
Correct.
Okay? At the end of the day, it's a matter of whether you're going to go in there and do the work.
But at the end of the day, it also matters about the timeline. If I take the time to do the due diligence, even though he has all that information, and it's the difference between getting the proper cancer treatment 2 weeks down the road or immediately, that's vital information that that person needed to know in order to get the treatment.
Exactly.
Trading is...
So you're highlighting that a subject matter expert should realistically have more access to the information in a more time-efficient manner than a layman.
Well, it's not time efficient. They just took the time to do it.
I see how you're positioning that, but at the end of the day, if you're someone that has enough knowledge to utilize the information just as efficiently, why do I have to wait because you have a certification, or because you have a doctorate, or because you have higher education?
For the same reason you can't fly a plane. You're not qualified, you didn't do the work, you're not there.
That's fine, but would you agree there's very terrible pilots and there's very good pilots?
Of course, there are, but they're all qualified,
So
they're all
all
certified, and they've all done the work to get there.
Yeah, I have to agree with this guy.
I was about to say, I could feel you. I could feel you over there.
Thank you. People do have equal access to information, and like I'm not against equitable information. I actually think that's like where I did agree. I don't agree that everyone should have the same tools.
Why not?
Same.
As someone who's like traded on a lot of those platforms, I don't think the average investor like needs to be making $1 million PARS deals.
I got the opportunity to see what an actual trader's like workbench looks like. Well, one in my work in investment bank, and two through a family friend. If every randomer had access to that, it would be horrible, because there's so many things that you can do that will essentially just put you under. It makes sense that with certain training now you have access to more. So again, it's just that idea that everyone should have the same thing, but in reality, more power comes with more responsibility. You just have to think about that. And that obviously comes down to the ability to be able to abuse that power, which banks do all the time. So it's a two-sided argument. But so far, this conversation is really great. And if you're liking it, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more.
People can't do that.
There's a degree of responsibility that we, being a little bit more informed, having more insight into the process, should take to protect our fellow man who doesn't have that same level of information, that same level of knowledge. Because my concern is that the information that's being pushed is barbershop information.
Right.
And we're pushing that as if it were legitimate, verified, valuable information.
In some cases, it's extremely well thought out research. In some cases.
Sure, absolutely. But it's just dangerous. I know people personally, like my family has lost quite a bit of money because of barbershop information. If our approach is let's just deregulate everything, not care about who gets hurt, then a lot of people who don't have the same privilege of information and knowledge aren't going to approach it properly and ethically or intelligently.
And so to the flip side of your coin, I come from a very fragmented familial situation. My mother and my father, they'll probably have to work until they die because they didn't fundamentally understand financial concepts to leverage themselves into a situation where they reach early retirement or financial freedom or whatever. But because there has been a huge amount of information made available to me, and I have actively made those choices, whether I find it through WallStreetBets or wherever else, I've put myself in a very empowered position in order to achieve the end goal of an earlier retirement or financial freedom.
We're not looking to take away the opportunity at all. We're looking to just make sure people know what they're getting into. And I know, like, it seems like, well, it's their fault if they get involved and they're not doing it correctly. But we have precautions all throughout society, whether it's, gun laws aren't exactly the best example, but like driver's licenses, like people buy cigarettes
at the end of the day,
before 18.
suicides still happen, and gun violence still happens.
But we still have precautions, and we have tools to protect those people.
But at the end of the day, can you go represent yourself when you purchase your home? Do you have to have a real estate agent?
No.
No, but like, you don't have to have a real
So why are we putting such a focus and emphasis on you have to be this professional to use XYZ?
But like, I've never heard of someone like representing themselves in court and everyone being like, that is a great plan.
Right, and that's a good example. I statistically, would I represent myself in court? No. But do I have the option to? Yes.
But like you have the option.
That's what
you
I
have the
want.
option to be in these systems. Like we're not saying that that's not true. But like there is things that come with being licensed and being a professional in a space.
A lot of the outrage was generated by this feeling that predatory short sellers were trying to put GameStop out of business prior to the time when it would naturally die. When predatory short sellers engage in naked short selling to put a company out of business, there's nothing natural like a lion killing a deer about that. That is.
But they're not going after companies like Amazon.
Right, like-
they're going
Like,
after companies that clearly the fundamentals are looking a little shaky.
GameStop is a brick and mortar retail video game seller.
People on Reddit see the future of GameStop very much as a new company, as a company with a new vision that will be modeled after Chewy and will be more internet-based and less brick-and-mortar based.
Right, but like why? I just don't think that many people have enough understanding even to be like doing this remotely responsibly.
And I think a lot of people get behind the initial statement that was said was because this is very much turned into a David and Goliath narrative.
But that's the thing.
Wait.
It's a narrative.
Correct.
You know, we say like deserve, not deserve, but the question is what damage?
Wait, so that was my, like
Right.
that was the word that I'm hung up on. Is like, what damage do we really think happened to hedge funds?
It's a symbolism as, look, you guys all had this cushy job. You had billions you were managing. Now you don't. Some of you are out.
Do you really think there was a lot of squirming? When you look at the people that were really vested in that company, do you think they really took the losses that you think they did? Or do you think they're riding that golden parachute laughing at the narrative that's going out?
There's other repercussions besides just the losses on AMC and GameStop, which would be an enormous amount of public pressure on the SEC to enforce the rules that they already have that have been poorly enforced. That is potentially a repercussion that will affect the day-to-day lives of hedge funds.
Now you're speaking my language, because when you talk about it like we've already won the war, that's when I'm like, first of all, I'm kind of on your side, and moreover, when we're like, oh, we made him square and we're winning here, I'm like, no, you haven't even started the game.
I think that there's about 10 million Redditors who are going to hang on to this forever, and a lot of us are motivated by the grudge we still feel from the lack of justice during the 2008 fiasco, let's call it.
Yeah,
one guy went to jail after.
Parts of what this guy's saying is true, but let's be real, there's 10 million people in that subreddit. So many of them do not even understand the financial crisis. I don't think as many people as he's saying actually feel an immense grudge about what happened during the financial crisis because they just don't really understand it. So I think this guy's being a bit optimistic or a bit naive.
The collusion that led to the mortgage-backed security crisis. It's hard to pin the idea that people involved in the mortgage-backed security crisis were aware that what they were doing at every point along the way was going to lead to a global financial crisis and deaths of poverty. But if you could prove that, I would say they would be guilty of mass murder.
What we have to do is you have to understand what those are, and you have to mobilize, and you have to create a situation where there's actual change on the books. If you just hold GameStop, it's not going to change anything. You gotta. This was an illustration of some of the blind spots, and it has to mobilize into a more social event in terms of representatives and leaders that say, you know what, there are some things that the financial institutions have a blind spot on, and we have to do some reforms.
You definitely have the communication tool and the movement and passion to do so, but realistically, there's a staying power.
I guarantee you that I personally have the power to hold a grudge for the rest of my life.
I respect that. I feel that.
I'm
right there with you.
I feel that.
And I believe there's about 10 million Redditors who equally are going to hold this grudge, maybe not forever,
I
but
think
for
you're
a very
too smart.
long
I think
time.
you're too smart and too engaged.
Well,
I think
that's a nice way to put it.
You're going to have to take that grudge and mobilize it into actual social change, and that comes from leadership,
Right.
and that comes from new elected officials. So
Ramneek knows what he's talking about.
You got to crosswalk that into actual stuff.
Yep.
All
Oh yeah. Okay.
We did it.
That was a good video. That was a good discussion. See, different people, different sides of a specific topic coming together to, just learn more. That was great. And again, guys, if you liked that video, make sure you hit the like button Please, it really does help out the video. Share it if you think other people will also find some value. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys again later. See you guys. Bye.